Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I would like to speak about the effect a child with Down syndrome has on his family. An article from the UN website called World Down Syndrome Day says that Down syndrome is a condition of mental retardation caused by an extra chromosome in the child's genetic makeup. Many parents become frightened when they learn that their child is going to have Down syndrome, and many regard it as a burden on the family. And according to Mark Leach, a writer for LifeSiteNews.com, over 90% of children with Down syndrome in Western countries are aborted. And he also said that Down syndrome is almost universally seen as something to be avoided. However, I would like to suggest that children with Down syndrome help their parents and siblings to be better people. I believe they do so for three reasons. First, because they can teach their families important virtues, and secondly, because they help their families to have a better outlook on life, and thirdly, because they can help their families to understand, to better understand and accept the disabled people in general. So the first reason I believe that children with Down syndromes can help their families become better people is because they can help them learn important virtues, mainly patience. Jill Letterman, a writer for the Scholastic Choices magazine, wrote an article about Kevin Pierce, who is a snowboarding champion and he has a brother named David who has Down syndromes. Kevin says of his brother, "The main thing David has taught me is patience." Letterman also says in the article that people with Down syndromes can be a reminder to others to slow down when life is moving quickly. A website called the Disability Scoop, which gives the latest news regarding disabled people and disabilities, features an article by Michelle Diamond about the relationships between children with Down syndromes and their siblings. The article includes an interview with Dawn Mayer, who's the director of the Sibling Support Project, who says that the sibling of a child with Down syndromes may have developed patience, diplomacy, and has certainly made some sacrifices on the sibling's benefit. Having someone in your family who needs taking care of and who requires patience can induce patience to grow in a person. The second reason I believe that children with Down syndromes can help their families to become better people is because they tend to give their families a better outlook on life. Pamela Knudsen wrote an article, is a writer for the Grand Forks Herald newspaper, and she wrote an article about Becca Hudson, who is the author of a book called What I Want to Know, Messages of Hope and Joy from Your Baby. Becca Hudson is the mother of a 6-year-old girl named Presley who has Down syndromes. And Mrs. Hudson said about her daughter, she has the best sense of humor. She makes a game out of everything, no matter how much of a hurry I'm in or how serious something is. A parent who has a child with such a happy outlook on life can easily gain a more positive attitude toward life as well. Knudsen also wrote, Presley has inspired her parents and those around her more than she knows. Mark Leach wrote, 79% of parents and their outlook, 79% of their parents said that their outlook on life was more positive because of their child with Down syndromes. To restate my third reason for believing that children with Down syndromes help their families become better people is that they help their families to gain a better understanding and respect for disabled people in general. Dr. Siegfried Puschel wrote a book called Down Syndrome, Growing and Learning, in which he quotes a mother whose daughter has Down syndrome. The mother says about her daughter, "First I realized what she would never be, then I learned what she did not have to be, and finally I have come to terms with what she can be." So now that she has gone through the process of accepting what her daughter cannot be, cannot be and can be. That she has a better understanding of the strength, both the strengths and the limitations of disabled people. Annalise Riley is the mother of a 25-year-old woman with Down syndromes, and she said about her daughter, she has taught us compassion for those who are not as strong or so-called perfect and beautiful. So through her daughter, she has greater empathy for disabled people. Michelle Diamond said, I don't think anyone can have a family member with a disability and not have an expanded view of the human condition. To conclude, children with Down syndromes are capable of strengthening their family's characters by teaching them simple virtues, mainly patience, and giving them a more positive outlook on life through their simple happiness, and they also give them a better understanding of other people with Down syndromes and other disabilities. Mark Leach said that 88% of siblings who have 88% of children who have siblings that have Down syndromes felt that they were better people because of their siblings with Down syndromes. Although there are challenges to raising a child with Down syndromes or having a sibling who has Down syndromes, the challenges do not outweigh the joys that a child with Down syndromes can bring to the family. Thank you.
Right, well, the proposition's clearly identified. You lay out the secondary claims. Organizationally, everything is pretty good. Then some nice background information. I do think you need to explain a little bit more the controversy, that there are negative consequences, that it's almost universally seen as something that is problematic, I think is the start of that particular problem, that there is some controversy on it. Now, it sounds like you've got a lot of people that you're citing who've made the best of what would have been perceived as a bad situation, and they feel some satisfaction with your ability to do that. And I think that you did a pretty good job citing some of that information, even getting some statistical information in there, although it is really survey-based, and we don't really have the same kind of objective measures that we're dealing with here on some of these other issues, because there's a lot of value argument here. The notion that somebody's life is more satisfactory or they feel greater compassion, those are certainly things that are important, but I'm not sure they fit into the classification of the claims that we're talking about. And of course, it's self-reported data, so somebody who's going to be critical of the information is probably going to look at the point of view of these folks and say, well, saying something different, I'm not sure that you talk about having a bias. You've got an inherent bias there because you speak badly about your brother or your sister or whatever sibling you have that has got Down syndrome, and it puts you in an untenable position with the rest of your family. So I think that there's a legitimate press that could be made on this kind of data. It would be nice if we had some data on how families do economically, whether or not they stay together, whether or not there's a higher level of conflict or violence or any of those kinds of things, or whether or not other kids succeed in school or are hindered in school when there's a Down syndrome child in the family. And we don't really get any data like that. Like I said, it's all very much this value-based kind of information and self-reported. So that's the main problem that I have, is that the evidence and the secondary claims are very much weighted toward those types of issues and less toward the factual issues that should be our focus.